Okay guys, so now we're gonna consider the line weight into the sketch. Now because there is a uniform line, the same thickness of a line going from bottom to the top, creating heavy, energetic and lightweight lines into the sketch will help the audience and the viewer or the potential client to understand what's going on. So I've created another layer underneath the original sketch, and actually I can take it above it because I'm gonna go over the lines I already did. So bringing up my charcoal tip side brush, that's included in your brush pack, I'm gonna go with what's easier at the beginning. For instance, that portion of the roots, I know it's supposed to be on the ground. I know they receive a lot of shadows. I know that they need to support what's going on later. So starting from the outer side, I'm gonna create a heavy line emphasis on this portion. Now I'm just going left right now. I'm not using the right right now. I'm just going for the easiest target. Like think that you're warming up, and I'm just thinking of how heavy it will be, and I'm inking it. Now look what happened right here. Here we have an overlap of lines. Like I know there is a line that goes beneath that root, and this root goes over it. So I can create a dark line. It's still on the left. Now from here to here, look what happened. First of all, there are a couple of things that happen. Here, this has some interactions with this line, and this face the camera, it face the light that comes from above. I imagine, maybe I didn't mention out in the beginning, but I imagine the light coming up from above at this direction. This helps me to decide where to suggest the shadow, where to suggest the heaviness of stuff. So continue on. I can create a heavy line here also, and a heavy line here also, a heavy line here also. Now I'm gonna stop right here in the middle and go back to the bottom. Now this edge faces down, so I'm gonna give it a heavy line, and then from here to here I'm gonna just make it a thin line, so we have some variety. Again, a heavy line here and a thin line here. Now for this inside texture, inside shapes, it's not clear to me at the sketch level. It's still a very rough sketch, but if I want to create something that is interesting, let's say that I'm gonna create a heavy line inside, and while I'm moving, I'm still moving as a CSI. Now here I have a thin line, and here I have a thin line. Here is a heavy line, a thick line, and again here I have a thick line, and this can remain also a thick line. Now here is the outmost closer to the light source area, so I'm gonna leave it thin. Now it's not a disappearing line. It's not that line that we will go in a moment. We're gonna talk about how can we suggest something that goes into perspective. So this will receive a thin line, a thin line, a thick line, because it just tends to face this direction, and it might receive some shadow, a thin line here, a thick line there, because it faces the opposite direction of the light source, and a thin line. Now from here, we're gonna create, okay, I'm gonna do stuff like this, a thing like that. I'm gonna connect this portion with a thin line, but then what happened is I'm gonna create energetic line going from here to here. So I'm taking the bold marker and I'm gonna create an energetic line from to here, from here to here. It's like this line. So I have this line here, this line here. Maybe I can suggest a shadow with combining energetic line from top to bottom. And from here I can suggest another energetic line, but I don't want to create the same line like in the beginning. I want to, maybe I can go from top to bottom this time, and it makes sense because to me it looks like I have some edge, like I have this tree here and then it goes like this. So I can use the thickness of the bulge to go down in something that is elegant. Okay, so from here to here, this still face outwards, like this still face the shadow side, so I can create this heavy line, and now because I have another conjunction, like there's a split from here to here, so I want to create a heavy line inside because I want to emphasize that this portion of the tree, the trunk, casts shadow onto it. So I'm gonna create a thick line inside. Now from here, this is like the top portion of the tree, so no more heavy lines here. What I can do is energetic lines, so I can do something like this, and again something like this, and again something like this. Now I'm gonna stop here because I've promised something earlier about disappearing line, which will make something that it will be more this adds, it's like the cherry on top, something that adds to the believability, I'm sorry. And for this edge I'm gonna create an energetic line just to make it more diverse. Again, variety is life. When you add variety, you add a lot of interest. Here I'm just gonna go with a thin line. I know this face downwards just like this and just like this one, but because it's already up high above the ground, the shadow that it receives is a lot lighter than the shadow down beneath. So I'm gonna go with just a thin line to describe it, and here on this conjunction I'm gonna create an energetic line because it's closer, but it's really goes from this tight portion of the tree trunk downward. So because it faces down, it will save a darker tone, but because it's already up in the trunk, I'm gonna use energetic line. And for this, just a thin line, just a thin line, I already have energetic line here on this side, so I'm gonna create a thin line here and a thin line here and a large energetic line from here to here also. um, yeah, so a thin line here. Let's see what we have. Okay, this can be, okay, this can be dark, a heavy line, but a thin line here. And a thin line, a thin line, because we're so high up in the tree trunk. And here, now what I was talking about earlier about disappearing line is the effect of aerial perspective. Like, imagine that you're standing right here and there are mountains far away from you, like, I mean, kilometers, miles away from you, and some of the portion of, or maybe there are houses and stuff in the horizon. Because it's so far away from you, there are layers of sky between you and the image, your view. So imagine that this is one layer and the second layer and another layer and another layer. So this is, there is too much of filters from your point of view to the object. So all of it will first of all seems uniformly, like it will see, it will almost will look like a bunch of one shape, a one blob of shape. Instead of separate things, you won't see things in contrast. You won't see exactly the window and the hinge and some stuff from where you're standing. So that's one thing. Another thing, that if it's daylight, let's assume that this is daylight, it will look almost like it's disappearing from you. And only if you move step further, if you stand here, then you will start to see things clear. But right now we are pushing the boundaries of illustration, and just to create another variation to what is already existing, I'm gonna go and use my eraser. Luckily I'm not using a pen, because if it was a pen, let's assume that we're using a pen, okay? And if I have a pen and I'm here in this stage, so I can use disappearing line. I'm gonna use a very light pen, and I can leave it just like it is already is. Like I won't define anything. I will leave it open. I will leave it in the sketch phase. This will give it the illusion of something that is, there is something to be done. There is something that I can still discover, unlike stuff that is very distinct down here. And when I look at it, I can see how it starts to get thinner and the light gets lighter. The lines gets lighter. So leaving it open at this stage will give it the illusion of the depth.